Good afternoon. Day two. A lot of exciting presentations over the past 2 days here at Manova. I'm excited. It's my first time to the Twin Cities, and it's exciting. I've spent most of my past few years abroad, in a little bit in Asia and a little bit in Europe. So I'm excited to get to come home and start to see how the United States is focusing on healthcare and healthcare innovation for the future. So I wanted to kick it off today. There it is. We're just discussing a little bit about the logistics element of healthcare connected for growth. And I hope that over the next 25 minutes or so, I can leave you with just a few insights or ideas for the future. So, I've got the great opportunity in my role. I come from the past in the industry. I was with GlaxoSmithKline for the past 12 years and got to lead the global logistics operations for them. And now I'm able to join UPS here and really start to embrace how does the logistics element of the supply chain is impacted by all the mega trends that we have going on. So I want everyone to just take a moment. It's been a long day. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to think of a friend, a family member, a loved one that's going through a medically critical situation at the moment. And as you do that, I want you to think about what might be on their mind. The situation, are the doctors making the right diagnoses? Are the nurses providing the right care and making the right assessments? Are the medicines that are being prescribed, are they the right ones? Are they available? Do we have access to health care? How are we going to pay for this? And then I want you to, as you open your eyes, just realize that that person, probably the furthest thing from their mind is what is happening in the back of the logistics of that supply chain in that event they're going through. And for me at UPS, if I can weave that mindset through the hearts and minds of the organization that moves these medically critical goods and other non-medically critical but critical to the care of the patient through the supply chain globally, then we've taken a step in the right direction. So that's what I'll spend a little bit of time talking about today. And we'll do that by looking at some of what I call the megatrends. So we're just going to take a quick whistle-stop tour of the megatrends, starting with chronic disease. Actually, over the past couple of days, I think I've heard this stat given 3 times. So it's either out there by the consultants or it's true. I don't know if those correlate oftentimes. But by 2020, more than half of all adult Americans will have a chronic disease, and almost 1/4 of the population will have 2. What's even more staggering about that statistic is that in 2017, globally, diabetes, I've heard 10, 20, 30 million, depending on what type 1, type 2 in the US, but globally today, 415 million cases of diabetes exist. But by 2040, which is only 21 years from now, it'll be 642 million and 55%. And this whole theme of the past 2 days is how do we live for wellness and become more preventative and start to address healthcare not as a sickness, but as a way in which we live and how we live our lives. Just think, what's behind that supply chain for diabetes? Test strips, glucose devices, pumps, oral solids, insulin. The U.S. market alone will reach $36 billion at a growth rate of 7%. That's staggering. The drug market will reach $58.4 billion, and the supply chain logistics cost to serve will spend $3.3 billion in shipment delivery alone as part of that cost. So as we've talked about, what if we could just live a healthier lifestyle and aim to save 10% of that cost? If we could then drive economies of scale across some of these megatrends using innovation, home health. If just 10% of the logistics spend, not of the healthcare spend, we could save $329 million per annum that could go towards humanitarian efforts, R&D, many other avenues for innovation. So moving on from that, that drives us to the global world. You know, this is said to be, Manova is going to be the first global healthcare summit. I'm excited about that because if I think about the world in my context, I've been fortunate enough in my career to spend a good bit of time across these regions globally. And if I look at Shanghai in 1990, and these pictures come from the same vantage view, think about that. Just 20 years ago, the city became this. And along with that growth came pollution, sedentary occupations, Western diets, COPD and cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer. And it's all about the access to the medicine. How do we deliver the goods and services, the medicines and drugs that people need in these global urban cities and broader? And that's where logistics for networks for growth to facilitate this global care becomes critical. Dubai, it was a desert. I had the opportunity to be there a couple weeks ago. It's fascinating, the growth. The number of cranes you see almost outweigh everything. But it's an absolutely beautiful city. And now, in 2020, and I know Minnesota was one of the options for the expo, the World Expo will be in Dubai in October of 2020. And I'm happy to say that UPS is going to be the logistics provider of choice for that venue. And that theme around that venue is all around creating minds and connecting minds and creating the future. And healthcare is going to be one of the 4 verticals that are themed across 161 countries. So what can we do now to bring the innovation of technology we've been talking about here today to this World Fair, if you will, in just under 2 years here in the Middle East? So the world is growing. The U.S. is now not only you have Asia, you have Latin America, you have many more examples of that. That was just a couple. And if I had more time, we'd go into that. But globalization is a true megatrend that we're seeing many avenues where not only are there more people with access or need access to the medicine, but people are living longer. So we wanted to share a few stats with you as we have this concept of the silver tsunami. I myself am silvering by the day and week with this job. But it's exciting because if you look at it, the growth rate in the U.S. at 41% of people over 60 by 2030 is phenomenal. But look at Latin America at 71%. Look at China and Asia at 66%. And Australia, 47%. People are living longer and will continue to. And what does this mean for us? It means there's a rising middle class. It means that the elderly will have chronic conditions that we talked about at the start of this by a factor of 2x. So in the U.S. alone, we have 35 million patients today with chronic conditions. By 2060, we'll have 74 million. That's almost 1/3 of the U.S. population. So what are we going to do about this demand? Are we going to build more hospitals? Are we going to build more networks? Actually, it's going in the complete reverse. Through innovation, through home health, we are now starting to see more care in the home. Everyone here at this conference knows this better than me, But people want to live their final years as they age with their families and loved ones in the care of their home and manage those conditions at home. So 12 million of households will have someone that needs self-care. Another 27 million will have limitations from just driving or cooking or cleaning the environment they live in or being able to get to the doctor. So we're going to have to come up with solutions that bring the care over the threshold into the home. And at UPS, we're starting to do that. In the UK, we've now purchased a company called Polar Speed that actually not only delivers the medicine to the home, but unlocks the door and takes it inside and takes away the old and puts it literally on the countertop. Then the nurse through the NHS arrives. I think this is where the US is starting to go. So let's talk about home health. Logistics plays a vital role in dispensing of care through the delivery. I see a massive shift I've just been talking about from this notion of B2B. The big three, McKesson, Cardinal, ABC. We know that they distribute that infrastructure. But there's a shift from B2B to B2C. Hospital stay costs thousands on insurance, but home care delivery mechanisms only cost in the hundreds. Home health will grow by 6.7% over any other category in our business. So imagine a world where the medicine supplies and the medicines converge and are synchronized through digital applications to arrive within 30 minutes of each other. Literally, the driver or the delivery mechanism dropping off that medicine to coincide within 15 to 30 minutes at your home, your doctor's, your home or your work to give you the care you need and administer that goods. That's not that far out. It's happening today. Only with technology will it start to happen more effectively and efficiently. So this notion of personalized care is really becoming our reality. But in logistics, oftentimes people in the healthcare industry forget about the requirements we need to ensure the supply chain integrity, the cold chain requirements of that product, the track and trace, the serialization. And technologies like blockchain are helping provide this on the forefront. And supply chain visibility is what is creating the trust in the minds of everybody here in this room and that gets administered these goods. So new platforms for diagnostics testing to and from the home requiring specimen logistics processes are now coming in and out of the home. These specimens require temperature control. These clinical trials require administration that the supply chain is as critical to the process as actually taking the specimen and testing the specimen. Otherwise, how do you know its efficacy or its effectiveness of the test? This is where smart technologies play a huge role in the world we live today here with logistics. I've heard a lot about the different telehealth. I saw a really cool one this morning with former Senator Bill Frist. I thought it was a great use case that I thought of this morning when it teed up this around the doctors now connecting through the iPads and the phones to coordinate not only the situation at hand, but being able to do that remotely, and the wearables and the monitors and the heavy supplies are going to only increase our innovation, but they're increasing the insurance cost to serve. So we have to start recognizing what are we going to do to make that more cost effective and efficient. And even if the diagnosis is done through the innovation, you have to have the medicines readily available and able to be dispensed. I think his situation was 2 a.m. Thank goodness they could find a 24/7 pharmacy where they were at. I know through most of Europe, that doesn't exist, much less the Middle East, Africa, or Latin America. So I think we can't just take this notion for granted. We have to think about the entire supply chain and the global supply chain impacts it has. I think Americans are very fortunate in this nature. That brings me to margin pressures. to create the accessibility and the affordability of care in these emerging markets and growth developed markets, we are constantly thinking about the cost, the inventory, the speed of the supply chain, the complexity that it brings end to end, not node to node, and the lead times. By ocean from Europe to Asia, 23, 27, 31 days. By air, 3, 4 to 5, however much more expensive. What's the right balance of the inventory stock and the cost stock pressure trade-offs that exist there? Those efficiencies lead us to a business that we've heard the stat 3 times, maybe even more in the past 2 days, that the U.S. alone spends $3.7 trillion on healthcare. That's 18.2% of the GDP today. That's 20 cents of every dollar of everyone in this room. And it's continuing to rise. Globally, we're predicted to reach 8.7 trillion. So I just want you to take a minute to look at what does $20 trillion look like over a 3-year period. I believe in $100 bills. That's $1 billion, and it keeps counting. It's enough money to be larger than the largest cruise ship that we have today. That's what we will spend on just the healthcare in 3 years by 2020. So imagine if I said a best-in-class logistics supply chain, if it was best-in-class globally, would be 1.85%. Many, when I was with my former employer, we were trying to hit 3%. Many regions and countries are in the 8, 9, 10, 11% of the cost of that medicine to deliver the goods. But if we just took 1.87, 1.5, let's just call it 2%, it would be $87 billion per year we spend on the delivery of goods. How many people get a package from an online e-commerce retailer? How many, 5 years ago, it was probably once a month. Now it's probably once a day, if not twice a day. At least I know if you're my wife or daughter, the front door is stocked every day. I beg them to pause at times. But that's the reality we're living in, and it's not going to stop. That trend is there. Think about those numbers. If we can just take 10% out, 15, 20% through technology and efficiency, think of what we could do with that money to drive improved care for the people that need it. So I've talked about high margins and cost pressures, inventory. Pharmaceuticals is the longest turn in inventory out of all sectors. If you look at FMCG, we talk about bananas with Walmart, 15 days, right? Spoilage and waste. If you look at medical devices, the Medtronics, wearables, 74 days. High tech, 48 days. Pharmaceutical medicines that we move each and every day from the top 74 brands is 192 days on average. And that's a good number. That is with the past decade of them realizing we need to drive our inventory down and become more effective in our supply chains. But that's still staggering. That means that for every pill or device or vaccine that's manufactured, it's 192 days from the time it's made on the manufacturing line until it's consumed. Think about that inventory and that waste in terms of write-offs. Think about how many more people we can serve if we can reduce that cost to serve. So reducing that cost to serve and freeing up cash can support R&D efforts. And this is one of the biggest challenges we have that makes it an attractive market. So I always say to people, I have the best job in the world. I'm in logistics, which I love, and I'm in healthcare, which is exciting. And then as it intersects technology, I believe we're at the crossroads. So I believe 2 things in life. Change is inevitable, and everyone that sees change resists it. So my entire role and job is to help people understand the value of change, and that change will happen whether we want it to or not. It's about how we take the time to influence that change and be innovators of the change. The disruptors, Florence, in 2011, just last week on the East Coast, but in 2011, I had the opportunity to live in Japan, in Tokyo, and unfortunately, it was at the time of the tsunami and the earthquake. And I was working in a manufacturing plant called Imaichi, actually doing child resistance packaging testing for blister and bottle packs, right? And we had to close down that manufacturing plant because of the water table. We were only 110 miles from Fukushima up in the north. So that's when I really got into supply chain management. And it was an amazing experience for me because we then had to source those medicines from Europe, from Germany, from Spain, from Italy, and bring them in through the south of Osaka versus Narita. And so what you didn't realize is that we had a different route to market. And we didn't have licenses in that country to export and import, so we had to get special exceptions from the Japanese government and from the European governments to take labeled product from Germany or Italy or Spain and put them into Japan and dispense them and overlabel them. In this global market with these megatrends, as these disruptions and disruptors become more prevalent, and it seems more often, we need to think about the risk of your supply chain and how you're managing it in a global environment. And technology can help that. So this is just one port. You're seeing more and more ports grow. They can only even monitor 1% to 2% of what comes through. So I'm just going to take 1 or 2 minutes and then end on a video and talk about what we've done here at UPS. I'd be remiss if I said I made the decision 5 months ago to become a UPSer, and I think it's a great opportunity because we have invested over the past few years in developing a global market which has over 7 million square feet of temperature-controlled and ambient cold chain environment for 50 GDP facilities for storing medicines and controlled substances. You can see on this map some of the locations. And we're continuing to invest in this heavily across Europe, the Americas, and Asia. This air hub network and storage network is helping us distribute for many of the large pharmaceutical companies and take products to patients and consumers. But I just wanted to give everybody a little whistle-stop tour of Louisville campus, just in our own backyard here in the United States. We have 2.9 million air packages and 3.1 million international packages moving daily. Daily. Of 20 million that we're moving because of the e-commerce trend. How do we create a healthcare network within a network? This is outside Louisville, directly across the street from the main airport, where I got to, when I first started, go see 200 airplanes fly in and out from 11 to 2 a.m. and out from 4 to 6, carrying almost every single pharmaceutical product known, med device, medicine, vaccine, cold chain, clinical trials, specimens, tests, surgical kits. When one of our planes can't make it there, surgeries get rescheduled. Medicines don't get to patients who need it. And so this operation is one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. And it moves down to the minute. It's an engineering mastermind. We can't build buildings fast enough. So all that green land around it is where we're looking to invest further in different technologies for healthcare. But these are healthcare buildings, completely temperature controlled, cages, custom agency, DEA, special operating procedures that we run and operate here at UPS. There's all the extra land. How are we working together collectively and collaboratively to provide integrated solutions where logistics is critical to the supply chain, to the manufacturers, and to the hospitals and providers, but it's core to UPS. So I want to just summarize today. After I think I've shared, we have 5,000 employees to dedicated healthcare, many facilities. I won't go through all this due to time. But I just want to take a moment to leave you with what I call the vision and pillars of UPS. To inspire trust and empower innovation to improve patients across the healthcare and life sciences ecosystem. We're here to do 4 things: create the right visibility, accuracy and timeliness; control, which is the reliability and consistency and responsiveness of service that is required; quality assurance. We have over 1,000 regulatory policies for different products to monitor, maintain, and train our employees to manage. And we have to ensure that's done without risk and at Six Sigma levels. All driving customer experience. The supply chain innovation needs to constantly be improved and more effective each and every day while managing that control and that quality assurance. So this is what I've been able to do in my first 100 days at UPS, is put in place these 4 pillars across this amazing network. And I'm excited to roll that out. And I want to leave you with a story from one of our customers, Exact Sciences. Who knows somebody that has cancer or colon cancer? It's highly curable if detected
early. Detection is everything. A lot of people are either embarrassed to do colonoscopy or are fearful of it. And it's a big problem, because if those people would get screened, then they'd have a chance to avoid this terrible, terrible disease. Exact Sciences is a company committed to the eradication of colorectal cancer, and we have developed a non-invasive colon cancer screening test so that people can be screened for colon cancer in the privacy of their own home.
We felt really good about the science. We felt great about the technology.
We started to think, well, how in the world are we going to get Cologuard to people? We reached out to UPS and some other logistics providers and said, can you help us think through this? But it was UPS that really said, wow, what you're doing could have a big impact on people. They sat down with our team and thought through every step along the process, from integrating our IT systems to connecting with the consumer, to make it very, very easy. It's a really simple process. Your doctor orders the test, UPS delivers it to your home.
For patients, Cologuard could not be any easier. You collect the specimen in the privacy of your own home, you ship it back, and that's it.
Once we get it back at the lab, it gets processed. We extract the DNA from that sample and generate a result and issue that result back to the physician.
The leadership of UPS, all the way up to the very highest level, has expressed a deep desire to help make us successful in our cause. That's the kind of company that you want to do business with.
Every week's bigger than the last. As we grow, it gives us confidence that we can focus on what we do. We don't do shipping. We don't do logistics. We have developed an unbelievably innovative cancer screening test that's going to save a lot of lives. We have a partner that can do what they do best, allow us to go develop not just this test, but the next test.
So I know we're out of time here, but I just thought I'd leave you with one final reminder of how to future-proof your supply chains and your businesses today, is to really understand that home health delivery is the way of the future. E-commerce platforms are here to stay and grow. Digital and technology are helping us drive improved effectiveness, speed and agility, accessibility and affordability. All of that networked for growth as the key theme. But we must work together collectively across all our spaces as healthcare and life sciences providers. And so I live by 3 words: to connect, to collaborate, and deliver. And through that, I believe we can drive the right integrated solutions and change the world. So just thank you today for the time to share a little bit about what we do here at UPS and what my job is, and look forward to working together. Thanks.